Awesome. Thanks so much, Taylor. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited. As usual, this is going to be another great product update. We have been hard at work. I think one of the coolest things too, like we have had nearly 1,000 people register for this webinar, so I'm just so thankful that you all are interested, following along, keeping up with all the updates. We work really, really hard to make them happen. So thank you so much for tuning in today. All right. I wanted to share a quick little update here. Many of you guys have been with us for a long time. You've seen the growth, but as of today, we are at 7,400 customers, which is just like so awesome. We are so grateful to have so many people who are trusting us with their business to help them to grow and scale and build much better companies. We appreciate you. We are grateful for you. Thank you for continuing to spread the word. It means the world to all of us. I want to welcome a few new team members as well. We continue to hire and build out our team. We've got Zach and Andrew and Claire. They've all joined our customer support team, rock stars. We've got Wilson, Tyler, and Faith that have joined as customer success managers. Also very excited to have them joining us. So again, as much as we can, we are looking for the best possible people to bring onto our team. If you know anyone that might be interested, please do send them to our careers page, jobtread.com/careers. The one caveat is they do need to be in Dallas or relocate to Dallas, and all of our customer facing people, we really prefer and even require construction experience. So those are just a couple little things there, but please keep helping us find the best people so we can keep building out this great team of ours. Also want to give a huge congrats. Join me in the chat in congratulating Anna. She has just gotten married to Sean Sloan. They had an amazing wedding. We are so excited for them. She is actually, though, here on the chat today with us. She was supposed to be on vacation, but couldn't miss this big update. So thank you so much for dialing in, Anna. We're so happy for you and so excited for the awesome times that you have ahead with Sean. He's a great guy. Really, really happy. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to hop into these product updates. There are a lot of them, so I'm gonna again go fast as I usually do. But I do want to remind everyone this is recorded. There's also help content on the help desk in the what's new. Lots of information that you'll be able to dig into and learn the ins and the outs later. But I just want to make sure that we touch on all these things to make sure that you're aware of all the great features that we've been adding over the last several months. All right, so first up, we've got our schedule updates. We have put a big focus on making a lot of different updates to the schedule. The ability to now have all of your employees as well as your subs, vendors, RSVP to the events, to the tasks that you assign them. This is a great way to just be able to confirm that they're going to be able to be there when you need them. So huge update there. Really excited about that. There's this new kind of RSVP section where you can manage all your RSVPs, right there next to your notifications. We've also now given the ability to lock all new dependencies as you create them. We heard a lot of feedback from people that said when they're building out, their schedules, every time they had to go in and they had to lock the dependencies so that they could preserve that lag time. Great feedback. We went and we made that update, so now you can just toggle that on so that every time you add those new tasks, those dependencies will be there. And then we've also allowed you to link task to documents. This is part of the schedule, the payment schedules update that we'll talk about here in a second, but you can now link those tasks to the documents so that you can get reminders about when you need to send them. You can also sort your task and to-do list. A lot of people gave a lot of feedback about that, so we heard you, and we've now allowed you to sort them in various ways. And then the search, just being able to search for the task. When you have those large schedules, those large lists, we realized it was a little bit hard to find that specific thing that you're looking for. So you're going to see you now have the search bar at the top of all of the task and to-do list to hopefully make it a lot quicker and easier for you to find the things you're looking for. And the ability to export tasks. Previously, you couldn't do that on every single view. You now can from everywhere, whether you're on a job, whether you're on a customer or vendor account, whether you're at the top level, you can click the export button, as well as on the importing task. Before, you could only import tasks on the Gantt chart view, and so you're now able to run those imports on any the list view, the calendar view, any of the different task and to-do views. You've got the ability to now import from your catalog. So lot of little things, a couple big things there, but we hope that this has made a big impact for you already. As always, we love when we can knock out that top feature request. This was one of the top feature requests that kind of right after we knocked out some of the dashboards, reporting, things like that. Like we went right to it. This will help you and allow you to now create recurring tasks and to-dos. So just like kind of any other calendar system, when you want to go and create a task that has recursion, you can select the frequency that you want to do it for. So it could be weekly, monthly, annually, whatever it may be, you're able to create those recurring tasks there. And you can also customize, by selecting the day of the week or the interval, give it an end condition if you want. Lots of different options. We studied a lot of the different tools out there, and that helped us to kind of develop this feature. And you also have the option whenever you're updating an existing series, you can either update just one individual task or you could update all the future tasks. So we've already seen some really creative uses of this. Really excited that we were able to get that into your hands. For those who are a little bit more tech savvy, you probably know recursion is a very difficult thing. So I'm really excited that we were able to deliver that. All right. So one of my favorite updates here was this ability to now view the Gantt to zoom in and out on the Gantt chart. We heard time and time again, especially from our larger builders, our home builders, whenever you're running a multi-month job, if you think about building a home, I mean, 9, 12 plus months, the Gantt chart, having to look at it day by day, became a very large, very, long kind of schedule there. And so we needed to be able to give you the ability where you can now zoom in. So if you wanted to see the week by week view, if you wanted to see month by month, if you wanted to see quarter by quarter, like you have all of those options now just using these little zoom in, zoom out icons right there on the Gantt. I think this is just such a great update. And I've already heard a ton of feedback. People are really excited about how much this has helped them to use the Gantt chart even more. I actually even heard, 2 or 3 people said they now are finally going to cancel whatever, Gantt system or chart tool they were using before because they really needed this ability. So, really excited that this got delivered. And all of this also flows through to the PDF exports. So when you export that Gantt chart, it's going to have that same kind of zoom level, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, or daily, you'll have that same exact setup, on that PDF. So really helpful tool. Hopefully everyone's really excited about this as I was. It was kind of one of the things that our developers just sort of snuck in there on us, but we're very grateful to have this make this upcoming release here. And we've also added a lot more schedule and to-do templates into this new library. So when you're in the catalog and you click on your schedule templates or your to-do templates tabs there, you'll see this library button right there on the right side. And so we have gone through, Anna and her team and everyone who's collaborated on this did a great job trying to give you a handful of starter templates so that you can more quickly get your schedule set up. Obviously you're going to want to customize it based on, your company and how you guys run your jobs, just kind of whatever is specific to you, but it's a super powerful way to be able to just pull in something directly to your job or pull it into your catalog and then make changes, customize it, and ultimately you can save it in your own organization's schedule or to-do templates. So hopefully everyone's found that this is really, really helpful to get you started, especially all of our new customers. As you saw, we've got, they're joining by the hundreds every single month. So we really wanted to make it easier for them to be able to get started. So yeah, I think I got everything there. Again, lots of neat features though with this scheduling, with these to-do templates. So if you're not using templates, I highly encourage you to think about how you can templatize, your jobs more, and being able to start with an existing template gives you that structure so that you can much more quickly, get those schedules built out. Really, really powerful stuff right there. And one other update, I just realized that I don't think I actually made the slide deck that I want to point out here too, is you now have the ability to publish and unpublish your schedule. So when you're making changes, when you're first building out the schedule, let's say it's on a new job, maybe you haven't even won the job yet, or right after you won it, you're not quite ready to share it. with everyone, with all of your subs, suppliers, customers, whoever it may be, like you can keep that schedule in draft. And so that's going to really help you, again, kind of refine all the details until you're ready, and then you can publish it. So definitely dig into those features as well. We think it's going to be really, really helpful. I believe you need to actually go enable that feature on the on the organization settings. But again, these are all of the schedule and to-do features that we've added since our last town hall. So hope everyone's really excited. Let me know in the chat which one your favorite one was, and I'm going to take a quick drink of water here. All right, moving on. Oh, love seeing all the love for the templates. Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on. Here we go. So we have continued to make updates to our messages. There have been numerous things that we have added in there. Again, adding the read receipts. That was, again, one of the top feature requests from everyone out there. You wanted to know, did your customer actually read the message? Did they see it? We know customers sometimes say I didn't get it, but actually they might have. You now have the ability to confirm that. Being able to see that, though, really helpful tool. We also, again, based on your request, we added the message reactions so that people can now just thumbs up or give it a heart or whatever emoji you want to use there. Again, sometimes it's just quick and easy these days to kind of do a little reaction without having to write out a full-blown message or sentence or whatever it is. And so with that, though, we also added this AI writing assistant. This is available anywhere that you can create content, draft messages, things like that. Again, if you want a little help on how to word something, maybe you need to translate something, like whatever it may be, you can definitely click on that little robot icon right there at the bottom of the message area, and you'll be prompted with this writing assistant, which, again, you're able to go back and forth, kind of keep giving it feedback. If it doesn't quite get it right the first time, you got to keep prompting it. For those of you out there who are AI pros, it's all about the prompt. The better you are at describing what you're looking for or what you want or giving it feedback, the continual iteration is how it continues to improve and refine that content that it generates for you. So again, great update. Really excited about that one. And lastly, the ability to now pin messages to the top of your feeds. Again, another request from our customers, is something that you guys wanted to be able to have that one message, whatever it may be. I mean, it could be an ongoing note or, announcement or something or other that you can now pin to the top of your feed. Super helpful. Again, it's sometimes it's the little quality of life updates that can make all the difference in the world. So we're excited to have rolled out all of these updates to our messaging. All right, now we've got the update to the job plans. So again, based on your feedback, we heard that people really wanted to be able to have the option to share the plans with their subcontractors, trade partners, suppliers, sometimes even the customer. And so you now have the ability to share a view-only access of your plans. So this will share those. It'll share, the parameters and the measurements, with your internal team members, vendors, customers. So again, it's a great way to keep everybody on the same page. If your trade partners need help, bidding out a job or figuring out, some sort of measurement detail, anything that you already have on the plans, you can now just directly share the plans with their role. And, again, we've heard a lot that this has been a huge update, so we're really excited to have delivered that. One other really neat feature that we added into the plans that a lot of people might not know about is the multiplayer mode. So if you are working on plans and someone else is working on those same plans at the same time, you're now able to simultaneously make updates, and then it will give live notifications to the other person, every time you save. And so then they'll be able to see what was changed, and you can kind of, again, not worry about overriding each other's changes. This multiplayer mode is something that, we had to add to the budget, same type situation. So we're excited that we got this into the plans for you. I would also encourage anyone out there who is doing the on-screen takeoffs, like this is a very, very robust tool. We've done our best to keep it as, kind of easy to use, as simplified as we can. on the interface here, but like dig in and learn about some of these advanced options. There are a ton of different features that are a little bit kind of deeper in, but once you learn them, they can be extremely powerful and can help you to just seamlessly generate these on-screen takeoffs, measure different areas and components, obviously working with multiple page PDFs. There's a lot of features in there that we've continued to add. So I encourage you, there's some live trainings that you can go to or recorded trainings, just on using the plans and the takeoff feature. All right. I see the chat over here going a little nuts. This is exciting. Next up, we have added the ability for you to be able to now accept bid requests and then directly push those updates into the budget. So when you're sending out bid requests, to a handful of your trade partners or whoever, you receive them back. Once you decide what you want to accept, whose bid you want to accept, or even, just if you want to get parts of that bid, you're now able to hit this push to budget button here on the top of the bid request. And then that's going to pull up a screen where you can go through and you can see what was in your budget, what is in the document, and you can pick and choose which updates you want to push back to the budget. This is a much more seamless way to essentially award those bids and then make sure that you've got the correct numbers directly in the budget without having to go through line by line and manually update them. Again, just a little update, but it goes a long way and adds a lot more power to help you more seamlessly manage bid requests and all of your job costs. Another feature that came from, again, it just sometimes, we hear from people about things that like would really improve, their lives, and they're not huge things. And so we always try to get these sprinkled in, even if they're not on our roadmap. This one made complete sense as well. A lot of times you want to be able to clone an item and then save it into the catalog. But if you had that existing item already in your catalog, you want to maybe save it as a new item. And so before, whenever you import from the catalog, there's a link between your budget item and your catalog item. And so anytime you wanted to save back, it would override that existing one. Well, now we've given you the ability to come in and you can disconnect that budget item from the catalog and then push it in as a new item. And so this will really help you, to again, as you're building out your catalog, any changes, any things that are happening, maybe you got to tweak something or get something a little bit different. If you don't want to override the existing item, you want to keep it. This allows you to then be able to save it as a new item back in the catalog. Again, small thing, but we think it'll really help a lot of people be able to manage all of the syncing between your budget and your catalog. And another thing, so on the documents, we've now given you the ability to directly add from the global catalog to documents. So this means that you can pull in, cost items or entire, groups and templates right from the catalog straight to a draft customer order. So this means that, again, it's even easier if you don't necessarily want to, build out the whole budget. Let's maybe say for selections, you want to just pull in a bunch of selection templates, but you don't need it all in your budget because obviously they're not going to select everything. This lets you pull from that global catalog. It allows you, to use our template libraries to browse Home Depot. If you, just kind of whatever you need, you can add directly to the document now. And then once that gets approved by the customer, that will automatically push all of the approved items to your budget. So everything that wasn't selected, like if it's in a selection group, those won't get pushed over. And so this, again, just sort of helps manage all of the, making sure that you've got just approved items in the budget. Just really neat little update, again, to help you kind of more seamlessly build these out. The other cool thing about the global catalog, and when you use the global catalog selector, even if you're pulling from your own organization's catalog, you have the ability to pick and choose multiple items at once. You can even open up multiple templates and pick and choose, just different groups or, within there, just pick different items, but it lets you kind of pick many things at one time and then add them to your documents. That same thing works if you're adding directly to your budget, so, unlike the plus item and plus group where you're really just kind of browsing and picking one thing really quickly, we think this is a much better and much more powerful way to build out your budgets and your documents. So if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't used that global catalog, tool, then I highly encourage you to check that out. It's really going to streamline the process of building out your budgets and your documents. All right, doing good on time here. Hopefully everyone's following along. See lots of excitement. Got any questions? I guess we'll circle back to those and see we got some. But here we go. Moving on. So also want to give another big shout out to the training team, to Anna, to Travis, everyone else. They have put a lot of effort into adding a lot of selection templates into that global catalog. So now you can find these different selection templates. They're already, pre-built with the options. They're just instantly ready. This lets you quickly select from that global catalog, pull it into your jobs, your documents, being able to kind of quickly edit, those existing structures is going to, again, make it so much faster for you to be able to build out your budgets and your jobs. I want to thank the team for all the effort because we think templates are so powerful. You need to be leveraging templates to much more quickly build out your jobs and schedules there. All right, another quick little, small but powerful update. When you're building document templates in your settings, a lot of times you want to kind of have all the same settings and all the same content, but maybe make one or two tweaks. And beforehand, you're having to copy over each and every little detail. You now have the ability to clone those document templates. So again, just it helps speed up that onboarding process, that getting set up, all of the language, the settings, everything is brought over so that you can more seamlessly just make any quick updates. Maybe you want to customize the payment schedule, the design, whatever it may be. Like, this is just a much faster way so that you can create those customized document templates. On the job dashboard, we now show a little this closed indicator. We heard from people that they couldn't quite tell if they had closed a job or not. They had to click this edit job button there that as you can see, it pops open, and that's where you have the option to mark a job as closed. It'll default to today, but if you did need to backdate it, you can. And so now when you land on that jobs dashboard, you'll see that closed indicator. Just again, help make sure that you know that this is a closed out job. All right, couple dashboard updates. So, as you know, our last town hall, we released this custom dashboard, super powerful, very, very robust. We have been so excited to see all of the different, ways that you all are using these dashboards to track your KPIs, to know how you're performing, looking at your inbound leads, looking at your sales, looking at kind of all of the different details that you might want to see in a visual format. We've seen tons of pictures of people now putting those dashboards up on the wall in the full screen mode with the auto refresh. We love it. That's awesome. If you're not yet using dashboards, I want to encourage you, please spend the time, go watch some of the training videos. This is so impactful on your business when you can have these visual aspects and where you can track the most important indicators for how your business is performing. I'm also a big believer, transparency is amazing. Get your team on the same page. So to the extent that you can get these dashboards up on your wall available so that all of your team can see it, it's a really great way to just kind of continue to build that team and get everybody working towards the same goals. But couple of the updates. So, when we first came out with it, you basically had to, just start from scratch. We've now given you the ability to still do that, but you can also start with that default layout. So that way too, like some people were getting in there and then they realized they didn't like the dashboard, they deleted it, but that also removed their default one. So you now have the ability to get that the default dashboard back and or use it as a starting point. We've also added the ability to group data by native, or custom fields. So when we first rolled this out, we didn't have as many of the group by functionality that we really wanted to see. So all of that is now in there. Again, being able to group up data, being able to group by custom fields like that just really further helps you to see all of the different, kind of aggregate data and create these charts and graphs and things like that. We also added the ability to group by formulas. So again, this is gonna just the power here is just unlimited. Like, you can categorize and summarize your data in so many different forms by being able to customize those formulas to meet your specific needs. The things that are important to your company, how long, how many, kind of whatever it may be. Like, this gives you the power to customize this to your heart's content. And so again, we realize that formulas are a rather advanced topic. If you need any help with that, please, don't hesitate to reach out, to our support team, our customer success managers. They're here to help, as well as, again, our extended, ecosystem of implementation partners, marketplace partners, DataX. They've got a whole catalog of all these dashboards that they share. Those are all free. You're able to quickly import them. So there's a lot of different resources at your fingertips to help you get going. And the last thing we wanted to call out is that, in the reports, just to kind of tighten it up, make it a little bit more clean, we have kind of removed that. There was a big black bar that had all the, the min, the max, the average, those type stats. They're still there. They're still available. You can hover over any of those different columns to now see that data, but we just wanted to kind of tighten it up and make it look a little bit more clean. So that's where, those went. If you actually noticed and missed them, they are still there. All right, couple other fields. So when we first rolled this out, there were a couple different objects, that were missing. You now have the ability to run reports and to create these dashboards and views, with all the time data, the time entries, all of that information is now available. Tasks, daily logs, those are also included in there, as well as all the user fields, like who they're assigned to, things like that. So you've got the full suite of all the data at your fingertips with these reports and dashboards. You can also now, specific to the time entries, you can now report on and track, on a cost item and cost code basis, for all of those time entries, to create these dashboards. If you want to look at, again, your labor by cost item, across all your jobs, or your labor by cost code, you have some really powerful reports that you can now build, based on this time entry data. And lastly, we've given you the ability to use, what we call kind of relative date fields in formulas. So if you wanted to calculate, like the age of a record, you can use like the date that it was created. So you could say, I want to know how many days, from today, has it been since that lead was created or that job was created. Again, this helps you to create different views to manage all of that. So you're making sure that you're following up at the right times and that your leads don't get stale, your jobs, your opportunities. Like, you got to keep a good handle on that. And it's all about managing all of that. And so you can now create all sorts of different formulas that can be reported on, created in those custom reports, within the, all the different kind of areas of JobTread, as well as on the dashboards. All right, how are we tracking? Everyone following me along? Following along here. So, one other thing that we have been looking at, one of the cool features that you can do is you can group by, these date fields too, where if you just wanted to group by year, by month, by weekday, like, you've got a lot of different kind of group by options in there as well. And so we're continuing to look at how we can add more and more, functionality to this. So if there's something that you can't figure out how to do, again, reach out to us, because there are some rather advanced formulas that, we may have to point you to. But again, like, take the time to dig into this stuff, because I truly believe this can make a huge impact on your ability to measure, monitor, and track your performance in real time. All right, another cool feature. So you now have the ability to sort all of those data views. So whether you're on the jobs tab, the task and schedule, the documents, the catalog, vendors, customers, whatever it may be, like, all of the headers are now clicked to sort. Super awesome. I love it. I know you guys have really enjoyed it. A few points about that though. So, whenever if you click it just one time, that's going to sort that column and all those rows, ascending. If you want to sort it descending, you click it one more time. If you want to remove the sort and go back to how it was, you click it a third time, and that will remove the sort. So hop in there, just try clicking on those column headers. You'll see that it lets you sort them. Really, really powerful. If you're looking, to find something, you want to sort it by status or by amount or by customer or by document, like, there's so many great ways that you can just quickly find your data by sorting everything that you have at your fingertips. And again, this works across all the custom views that are available to you in JobTread. All right, so we added a really neat feature to file and plan markup called callouts. These callout boxes, they allow you to highlight key details and just improve the visibility, the usability of what you're trying, to focus on here. And so you can press and hold and drag and drop these different text boxes to wherever you need. Like if you need to kind of put, a message or write out some text, but you don't want it to block something that's really important. It's just so much easier to be able to create these call outs. And then just using those blue dots, you can kind of drag and adjust the elbows, the arrowheads. If you want to kind of point to multiple things with the same text box, it's just a much faster way to highlight things on your files, photos, plans, things like that. So again, great feature add. We've already heard a lot of great feedback. People are really excited about it. But definitely go play around, with those. It's going to help you to just more quickly and seamlessly identify key areas of your plans and drawings. All right, payment schedules. This was another huge update. This has been in the works for a good while. We are really excited to have been able to deliver this in such a nice coupled way with your customer orders there. So you can now build out these payment schedules. And by the way, you can set these up in the document template so that every time you create that proposal or that change order, you will automatically start with that same payment schedule. But if you do need to customize it, you can do so right there on the document. Or if you didn't have it already set up in the template, you can build it out right there. But it's a really powerful feature. It allows you to automatically generate invoices based on that approved contract price from that document. So again, if you want to immediately collect a deposit right after they sign, right when they click approve, it's going to redirect them straight to that deposit, and that allows them, again, if you're integrated with our payments, you can directly collect the credit card, the ACH, they can pay through the QuickBooks link, like, right there. Like you no longer have to wait, get notified, and then someone back at the office has to go create it and send it. Like this whole thing can be automated, and it's just so powerful to be able to do that. But even cooler is that it can also automatically create all of the other, invoice drafts so that at the right time in the project, you're then able to send those. And so again, this is where coming back to linking your task to your documents, if you need to get reminded about when it's time to send that next draw request or progress payment or whatever it may be, like, having that linkage in there is really powerful. And if you don't have the, maybe you don't have your schedule built out before you send the proposal, that's totally fine. You can link them after, once you do build out the schedule, just right there from the task, you can directly link it to the document so that you can get reminded to make sure that you're sending out those requests at the right time. Again, this is perfect for fixed price jobs, change orders, even, like, again, you send a change order, immediately redirect and have them, pay the invoice instantly. Change orders are, this industry standard is to collect the full amount right then and there. You don't need to go back and refine your overall job payment schedules because you've already agreed upon that. Just collect those change order fees right after they sign it. All right, another big update that I think is probably, I remember being asked for this from the very beginning of JobTread. It's just something that, just didn't happen until this week. So we're really excited about this one. You now have the ability to customize the disclaimer text on your documents directly above the signature. Before, it said something about, by signing here, you'd agree to the specifications, costs, yada, yada. But like, a lot of times, you may be using a document, and you might not even have any line items on there. You're just trying to collect a signature, and it wasn't, relevant. It wasn't appropriate to have that disclaimer text right above the signature. So you now have the ability to customize this, and that is done on the document. You can also save this in your document templates. So this will be really powerful. Go through and just kind of think about, depending on the type of document, what do you want that disclaimer there to say, to make sure that it's very clear what they are signing to, agreeing to, whatever it may be. But that's going to be listed right there in the footer, right above those signature lines. So super powerful. Really glad we got that in there. Awesome update. All right, another one of my awesome favorite. Can't even, believe that we have actually been able to finally get this delivered. So you now have the full Home Depot catalog available at your fingertips in the global catalog of JobTread. This is allowing you to browse and search the entirety of HomeDepot.com right within JobTread, and you can select the store that you want to buy from. Make sure that you're getting those, local prices. All of that is right there at your fingertips. Super powerful. We are so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with Home Depot and all of their developers. They have an incredible tech team, and it's just been such an honor. Again, for those of you who are at JobTread Connect and heard my Eagle Scout story, like Home Depot sponsored my Eagle Scout, and so it's just like, a dream come true to be able to have them as a partner of ours here at JobTread. I am super, super excited about this. But another really cool update is that you can now authenticate with your Pro Xtra account. And so this, if you have special pricing, discounted pricing, if you have a large, volume-based account, you can directly sign in and authenticate your phone number that's on your Pro Xtra account. And then every time you search and you pull price updates from Home Depot, it will pull your specific pricing based on your Pro Xtra rewards account. So again, huge update. We are so excited to have this out there. But look, this isn't the end of the road here. We are now going to turn to focus on enabling the full procurement. So again, just being able to get your budgets accurately built, have those, those real-time price updates. That's phase one. The next phase, though, once you win that job, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to directly purchase all of those materials that you included in your job right from Home Depot. So we are focused on getting that enabled next, and then even being able to pull in all of the receipts directly from Home Depot to automate the job costing. There is so much opportunity here, and we are so excited to finally have this, out there in the wild. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go look at it. It's right there in the global catalog, and just start searching. You can also browse by all the categories. You will see it is literally the same exact information that they have on HomeDepot.com. So again, thank you to all of our Home Depot partners, everyone who's worked on this project. I know there's a lot of effort that has gone on behind the scenes to make this work. This is no easy feat, and I'm just so grateful for everyone on all the teams that have been part of this. Thank you all for making this happen. All right, looking in at some QuickBooks Online updates now. So, couple features here. We have heard, when you're managing all of your unsynced records, it was basically just everything from all time, and so, we went in and we added some additional controls to help you, manage those and be able to really filter out everything based on a date, so, kind of depending on what you're looking at there, documents, time entries, payments, vendors, like you can now set dates so that you're only seeing the most recent, the most new things that you want to address. Again, there may be historical stuff that you didn't want synced in. And so obviously, being able to just kind of, put that stuff, hide it. You don't need to see it. It'll help you better manage all of these records. We've also made a few updates to the time where you're now able to push time entries in as billable. That is a setting in the QuickBooks Online integration on JobTread. So, go to the settings, integrations, QBO. That is a setting that you can toggle on if you want all of those time entries to go in as billable. You can also, if you want the QBO classes, so that you've selected those at the job level, those will now push with your time entries as well. So for those of you who are using classes and needed those to be on the time entries, you can now get that. Those are, just some really good updates that we think will continue to help improve this. And again, I want to say, shout out to Andrew and our team. Managing our QuickBooks integrations is a full-time job. He has put in countless hours and continues to keep up with all of their changes, all of the things that go on. Every time people have questions or running into issues, we are spending a tremendous effort to make sure that this is as seamless as possible. And again, I believe the market has seen that and recognized that. A lot of other companies outsource that and think they can just kind of build this version and it'll be done. That is not the case. This is a continual effort by us on our team. So just again, shout out to Andrew for all of his hard work on that. All right, got another cool update. So Render AJ and his team have been hard at work continuing to improve the render app that they have built. Allows you to do LiDAR scanning of rooms to quickly get all of the measurements from any project, whatever you may be working on. So this update was just super cool. In Render, they've now added support for room-based parameters. So before, basically you were just pulling kind of the total, the total square feet or total area, total paintable surface. Like, now you can still get all that total aggregated measurement data, but you can also drill into room by room parameters and measurement data now. And so right when you go and you sync the render project to JobTread, like, you have the option to drill in and pick and choose the specific details for each one of those rooms. Awesome update by their team as well as by our team for putting that into place. Really, really excited about that. So you'll see here, you can now pick and choose. I remember I was sitting with Tom Reber actually the other day, and I was showing him how painting companies can now, if you wanted to go in there and instead of having just kind of your total paintable area, you can now actually go room by room, and this lets you pick and choose, just like instantly swap to use the room by room parameters. Like, that is such a quick way to get much more detailed and precise takeoffs and ultimately estimate based on that data. So really excited about this update. We also have coming soon the ability where when you send the invite capture to the customer or really to anyone that you send out there to the job, and then they grab the app and they do the scan, soon that will just instantly drop the plans, the measurements, all the details directly into your JobTread, so you don't even have to go and click add to job. That'll be a nice enhancement, as well as all of the field notes. When you're out there and you're kind of taking notes and incorporating all of that into your scans there on Render, that will soon be automatically dropped into the file section of JobTread. So again, we always love partners who are continuing to innovate and add new functionality based on their customers' feedback. So again, I know we got a lot of mutual customers, and I'm very grateful for all of the effort that has gone in here to make this happen. All right, here is another big one. I know we're just going, but here's a really exciting update. We heard your feedback loud and clear that, before, when you were trying to, invoice for your time, it was just using the labor burden that you had set in the settings. And obviously that was not the right answer. You might have a different rate. Your billable rate to your client is ultimately what you needed to be invoicing for. And so people were having to manually make adjustments, very time consuming. So now when you are adding labor hours to an invoice, you want to charge for the appropriate unit cost and unit price instead of that employee burdened rate. So this now gives you the ability. So it will, when you enable that toggle right there, it's going to go, and based on the line items that those time entries are linked to, it's going to go and get the approved unit cost and unit price from the approved customer order. So that will be the first place that it pulls from. If you've got that approved, that's where we're going to pull that billable rate. Now, let's say, again, you didn't have an approved customer order. That's fine too. Then we will default back to the budget and the estimated unit cost and unit price to set what this invoiced amount should be. So really powerful. This supports multiple line items. Each can have its own rate, the markup, the recorded hours. Very, very robust here. Now, this does require that you're doing your job costing by item, for this to work. If you're doing your job costing by cost code and they're clocking in, to various cost codes, like we're not going to be able to have that direct relationship to know where to pull those billable rates from. So keep that in mind. That is one caveat there, but we're really, really excited about this update. We think it's going to make it so much easier to make sure that you're invoicing for the correct, rates instead of your burdened rate. All right, one other quick little feature update we just snuck in there. So now with folders, when you're browsing folders, before you couldn't necessarily tell if there were files in those folders or not. So now if the folder name has the gray icon next to it, that means that it contains files. If it has the white folder next to it, then that means it's empty. Just small little visual update there, help you kind of know where your files are at if you didn't want to just, expand or kind of view, the full list view of them. And we've also now made it where, users who have the edit job permission. So if they go to a job and they have the ability, to edit the job, to, do those types of features within, they will now also have the ability, if need be, to create new folders within that job, as well as to remove folders if need be. So again, we heard a lot of feedback that you really wanted your project managers or the people other than just your admins to be able to manage the folder structure. So that is now possible just based on that edit job permission. All right. Another cool update. So we have spent a tremendous amount of time. Like, this has been something that Anna, the training team, the design team, the developers, we have spent the last several months working on getting all of our help desk content, all of the videos up to date. Again, like, just months of effort from Anna and the training team, Rachel, CT, like, they have put so much time and energy into getting every single article and every single video for every feature in JobTread, recorded, updated, and published. And so we have added just a ton of new articles, new walkthroughs. We even added these new industry based guides into there. So really, really awesome stuff. Definitely go in, check that out. Whether you're a home builder, remodeler, pool builder, deck builder, painter, roofer, like whatever it is, like, there are so many different, specifics that we have detailed out in these industry guides to, again, help you learn how you can better implement JobTread. Gives you some of those starting templates, examples, cost codes, custom fields, just a bunch of ideas, in there to help you get going. So really excited about that. We've also made a few little feature updates. The feature request list, again, really, really powerful tool, very helpful for us to know what are the most important features and helps us to guide our development and how we prioritize what we do. We've added a few more filters in there to kind of help us manage it. There were so many things that, we kind of had to enhance that a little bit there, but you'll see those. We've also kind of tried to simplify the navigation a little bit, and really continuing to improve upon the search right there in there. That is kind of a complicated thing. It's a hot topic here at JobTread. How do we make it as easy as possible to find the information you're looking for? And it's something that we're constantly working at. But with that being said, one of the biggest updates that we just made here is that this entire help desk, all of these articles, the industry guides, the what's new, like, this has now all been published. This is public to the internet now. And so, if you go to our website and you click on, to go to the under resources, there's a help desk link. If you're just searching Google, this means that now all of the, Google specifically is going to be able to use all of this information to make sure that its AI is giving you accurate, up-to-date information. We have seen with ChatGPT and some of the others, there are still some challenges with them being able to kind of, index and read all the content. Google is definitely light years ahead. I've been a huge ChatGPT fan myself, but when I started going and asking specific questions about JobTread, my mind was blown a little bit at how much more accurate Google's AI was actually, because it's now able to read and is indexed a lot of this content. I think all of this content at this point, and also having access to all of our help videos and information. So again, I encourage you to really think through, whenever you need help, if you can't quite find it on our help search because, we have some limitations there, go to Google, ask Google your question about JobTread. Our goal is to help really inform all of, the rest of the internet, the web, the AI. If anyone on your team or any of your partners or your bookkeeper or whoever, if they don't have access to JobTread for whatever reason, they can now access all of these help desk articles without having to be logged in. So we think it's a great way to really just keep, working together, collaborating, learning, as well as educating the rest of the web. All right, so that is everything that we have rolled out so far. I see I'm running low on time here, but got a little bit more. So now I'm really excited to share a few more updates that are coming very, very soon. The first one, QuickBooks projects. Right now, you cannot, you have to create the job in JobTread, and then you have to go into your QuickBooks online and you have to manually create the project. I'm excited to announce we have now, and thanks to Intuit, providing this functionality in the API in a recent update, we will now be able to automatically create your projects in your QuickBooks Online. They'll automatically be linked up and pushed over, whenever, relevant document is marked pending or approved, an invoice or bill, when time gets approved, like that whole connection will now happen seamlessly, just like it does when you're not using projects and you're creating, what they call customers and sub-customers. Really excited about this. It's not out quite yet, but we're very hopeful. Very soon we're going to be getting that update out there. If you do want to use projects, that there is a setting in the QuickBooks integration to enable that. So be on the lookout for that coming soon. All right, another huge update. We are so grateful that so many of you, a few weeks ago, we had a really great collaborative session with a lot of the commercial builders on JobTread to say, hey, like we understand that you need to be able to track your retainage. Retainage, or I think in Canada they call it holdbacks. Like what this is, that there's two types of retainage. It's billable retainage to the customer, and that's the amount withheld from a customer invoice to be billed later. And then there's the receivable retainage, so that's from the vendor. That's the amount withheld from a vendor bill that will be paid out later. And so again, on these larger, especially commercial projects, even probably some larger, residential projects, like, if you are required, or if you are just tracking retainage using this, like this allows you to withhold a percentage of a payment until the work is fully completed. You're going to now be able to track and manage all of that directly in JobTread. You can adjust the retainage percentage on the job. You've got some defaults that you can set in the settings for this, but if you need to override it or change it for, on a job by job basis, you're able to do that. You can also override that retainage settings directly on the individual invoices and bills. So again, really, really powerful, but to take it a step further, we actually went and have now added some additional cost and price columns in your job budget and on the reports tab of a job, so that you'll be able to see an up-to-date amount of retainage on a line-by-line basis, or you can look down at the bottom. Again, like this is just going to be a very, very powerful way. And as those of you know who, commercial, if you need to, report, in an AIA, G702, G703, like, again, this is getting us to the point where you're now going to have the data that you need to much more easily, seamlessly complete those forms and submit them when you need. So very excited about this update. Mike has done a great job. We're very fortunate to have Mike on our development team, who came from working at one of the largest general contractors in the country. So he deeply understands, the importance of all of this, and has done a great job leading this team with you all. Thank you to all of those who were on that call with us, who gave us your feedback. That was tremendously helpful, and we're very, very excited to have this coming out soon. We will be giving this, we will be having an early release and giving people early access to this feature over the next week or so that you'll be able to further get in there, test it, and give us even more feedback. If there's ways that we can continue to improve, getting you the data in the right format, the right ways, we're all ears. We want to make sure that JobTread is able to meet your needs as a commercial builder. All right, now, without further ado, probably, one of my all-time favorite, most excited features. I mean, dashboards was it, now it's out. So my new favorite thing that we have been, working a long time on this, and we have heard from so many of you, the importance of automating, different processes and creating these workflows in JobTread to do, what may seem like just a simple thing. We are so excited that we have this coming out soon. Matthew has done a great job, building this into JobTread, where you're going to now be able to create your own workflows, directly in the JobTread app. And these are going to be trigger-based, actions that can run across, all your projects, customers, documents, like whatever happens, like you have triggers that will essentially say, hey, something was updated, something was created, maybe it's something from, some other web application has posted something into us. Like, the trigger is what will kick off the workflow. And then you can filter down to make sure you're just taking the actions on the things that you want, but you can then have all of these different actions with a whole lot of logic, with a whole bunch of different features in there so that you can go and do, the different things within JobTread that need to happen based on something that has happened. So, again, you're going to be able to have right here, you can see all your workflows. You can mark them active or inactive. You can also see all of the runs. Like every time something is run, you'll be able to dig in and see, hey, was it successful? Did it fail? What happened? Why? So we've given you a lot of different features to manage all of these workflow automations. Again, there's tons of power with filters, creating logic, being able to, based on different things, you can kind of go down these different paths. You can handle, a list of things if you need to loop over a list and take different actions. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples here. So in this example, right, we have a new lead was created. And so whenever that lead gets created, like that is the trigger. And so now we may want to filter, that, because again, there could be, maybe there's things that you don't want to take action on. And so in this example, we have a filter, and so that is going to essentially say, hey, based on the status, we want you to move forward only if the status equals new lead. And then, right here, we can create the job, so the action here is to create a job, and we can use, the data from that customer account that got created or from that lead to automatically create the job, set whatever, custom fields, whatever values you need. And then look, let's take it one step further and let's go ahead and also import a schedule template, and so, or a to-do template, like there's so much power that you're going to be able to do with these triggers and actions. Another example, let's say, a little simpler here, new job is created. We just want to automatically import the schedule template, and so again, if you're using the same template or the same to-do template, like, trigger, action, very, very easy, to just streamline these whole processes. Now, maybe I shouldn't say easy because there are a lot of details here, and you will need to make sure kind of you pay attention to the details. But again, we're going to provide a lot of training to help you. All right, another example here. So let's say, you got a proposal that gets signed, so the trigger is that a document was updated. And so now we're going to get that document. We're going to filter based on the status to make sure, that was a customer order, the status is approved. Maybe we want to say, we only want the document where the name is proposal. And after that, then we're going to go update the job. So in this case, we want to change the job status, which is a custom field. We want to change it to, approved. We may want to assign the project manager. Maybe you want to create, some different rules or some way to kind of determine who's going to be the project manager. Now you can set that project manager field through this workflow. So as you can see, like the possibilities are going to be endless here. All right, here's another one. So let's say we've got any document, that gets approved, and we just want to always go and update, the job, but we want to have different updates depending on the type of document it was. So again, triggers document updated. The filter is going to make sure, that we're only looking at documents that were approved. And then we can go and we're going to say, look, if that document was a customer order, we want to go and update the job this way. If that document was a customer invoice, maybe we want to make a different update to the job. So this is where that kind of that logic in those different paths can be built out in your workflows. Another example here, a lot of times you guys have said, hey, we want to automatically void or decline, our documents, our proposals, based on once they hit the expiration date. So here's an example where, you can essentially come in and say, look, as soon as, the due date is, equal to that expiration date, or, today is on, it's on that due date, that will be able to automatically change the document status to declined. And so, those could run at, 12 a.m. every day. Again, super powerful. Just go find all those expired proposals and decline them. Another example here, let's say, and again, we've heard time and time again, our field guys, they forget to clock out. Yeah, I'm sure everyone has heard that, probably more times than you'd like. So let's say maybe we want to set up a rule that will remind the users who are still clocked in after 8 hours of work. So we could, again, so based on the time entry, once the time entry gets created, we're going to create a delay action. And so we're going to say we're going to delay for 8 hours. And then we want it to run and go get that time entry. We want to check to make sure that it hasn't been, clocked out. So the end of that is blank. That means they're still clocked in. And if they are, then we're going to get that user and we're going to send them a direct message, DM that says, hey, clock out, some sort of reminder, whatever it may be, but let's say maybe you wanted to, maybe you wanted to actually say at 5 p.m. every day, you want to go look up all of the users who are clocked in and send them a reminder to clock out. You're going to have a lot of different, capabilities here to set up these custom, workflows, these custom reminders. And the cool thing is that, these reminders, these messages, they're now going to be able to be sent, to internal users as well as external users. Another example here, and this is where, again, like with the custom notifications, you were able to set up notifications that would notify you as internal users about a COI that's about to expire, 30, 60, 90 days out, whatever it may be. But now with this automated workflows feature, you're going to be able to come in and essentially say, hey, I want to find, all of the vendors that have an expired COI coming up in 30 days. And so, again, this thing, these workflows, they're constantly running. And so as soon as a record matches the criteria here, and it looks like it's going to run every day at 9:30, it's going to check and say, hey, is it 30 days before the COI expiration date? If so, we're going to go get that information, grab that vendor contact. We're going to send them a message saying, hey, we need your updated COI. And maybe you want to have a couple of these. Maybe you want to start badgering them to make sure that, again, you're getting that updated information. One other cool update here, and really like the power of this is going to not only be within JobTread, but with external applications as well. So we will be able to support webhooks from third-party applications to be the triggers. So whatever other apps you might be using out there, if they are, if they have the ability to post data to webhooks, they're called webhooks, then that means that you will be able to give it a URL that they will post to, and then we will grab that info whenever it comes in, and we will be able to then take action. So let's say, again, simple example, some other app, whether it's, your Go High Level, your Facebook ad account, whatever it may be, you can essentially have that create the account in JobTread, create, that new lead, that new customer right here in this workflow action. Super powerful. And then on the other side, you'll be able to have an action where your workflow can actually post, send data out to those third-party applications as well. So if they can receive webhooks, then again, you can set up these custom integrations that come in, do some stuff in JobTread and then post right back out, to send them stuff. Or maybe something happens in JobTread and you want to, notify some other application. Like the power here is endless, and we are so excited about this. Look, at the end of the day, that we know that this is definitely, we are in the very advanced territory. And so I want you to know, like, don't fret. There are going to be a lot of resources to help you here. We will have, workflow and automation specific trainings available to you in the help desk. We'll do live trainings, we'll have recorded trainings. We will have tons of help desk examples. We're even going to have a template library that you'll be able to pull from a bunch of examples as well. On the JobTread Pros Facebook group, you guys have been tremendous. We're sharing your dashboard ideas, formula ideas. There, I'm sure will be a workflows, Facebook chat there. You'll be able to share and collaborate there. Again, we'll also do live think tanks about workflow building, things like that. I also know, again, like, DataX, Elliot and Dominic and Peter, like, they're planning to create their own set of template libraries, their own walkthroughs, videos, trainings. I'm sure they will be available too for hire if you need, hands-on, building there. But, again, there will be a lot of resources, and our goal is to really help you fully automate all of these different processes that, you're spending time manually doing things over and over. Whenever you can automate things, you can just have so much more, accurate data, timely data, making sure that everything is flowing as seamlessly and automated as possible. Really, really excited about this update. It will be coming soon. But again, like I said, with both the retainage and with the workflows, these are very, complicated and detailed enhancements. And so we want to give those of you who are interested in getting early access. If you want to help us test and provide feedback before this gets published live to everyone, then please email support@jobtread.com. As soon as they're ready for that early access, you'll get an email that'll kind of tell you all the instructions about what needs to happen. You can go in there, you'll be able to test it, give feedback. You just reply to the email with all that feedback. But look, let me tell you, this isn't going to hang around, in beta for very long. Maybe a week, maybe, probably not too much longer. We're doing our own internal testing, and we've got, even some of our third party, integration partners are helping us test here. But we will, we'll be taking your feedback, getting it in there, but as quickly as we can get this into everyone's hands, that is our goal. We don't want to just sit here and kind of, spin our wheels. Our goal is to get these features out live as quickly as we can. So if you're interested, please do feel free to reach out. Now, what's on the development roadmap? Again, every single time we do these, we tell you what we're working on, and we do our best to make sure that we accomplish those things, while also balancing, let's look at kind of any low-hanging fruit, any opportunities that come about. We try to sprinkle in those fun updates too. But what we've got here, so we're going to continue to make document improvements. We understand the formatting, being able to improve kind of how the grouping looks. We've been trying to get this kind of group gallery view out there, but there's the documents are very, very complicated, and so these are things that we're continually working on. But we got some cool things in the hopper. We're also going to be exploring how we might be able to enable custom fields on documents. So if your line items, let's say you've got a SKU number, or you've got some other detail, a model number, or instructions, or whatever, we're going to look at how we might be able to enable some of that data directly on the documents when you create them. So that'll be super, super exciting. I know a lot of people will probably be excited about that. All right, another cool update. We see so many times that people have wanted to be able to create formulas within their budget. And so, maybe you want to, calculate the cost or the price per square foot of a job, or, you want to know what is your square foot pricing for, painting or for demo or whatever. You're going to now, be able to create formulas that can reference, all of the job custom fields, as well as the cost item custom fields, as well as all of the cost item details, all those amounts and all that stuff. And so, we think that this is going to be a really powerful way for you to be able to really gain a lot more additional insight into your jobs, your budgets. One other example that comes to mind. So let's say you wanted to understand your production rate on a particular line item, a particular, group of line items. You'll be able to say, hey, let's say we have we have 500 linear feet of fencing that we're doing, and we have 50 hours logged. Well, we want to know, what was our production rate there? Well, we did 10 linear feet per hour. And so being able to just calculate that and see that data automatically, dynamically in your budget, we think this is going to be so helpful and very, very powerful. So be on the lookout for that. The Go high level integration. So the interesting thing. So we looked at kind of building the integration directly within their workflows feature. Part of that kind of inspired us to go. There were some limitations that we really weren't able to work around, and so ultimately Matthew said, hey, look, let me just go pivot for a second, build out our own workflow feature that we will then be able to use for countless other integrations. So one of the first ones that we're going to do is the high level integration, where you're going to be able to have, they have a long list of all of the different, webhooks that they support, all the different, actions, triggers that can happen over there, customers created, opportunity changes, whatever it may be, right? We'll be able to then leverage all of that directly in our, workflows feature here. And we'll have a nice native integration with high level, leveraging that. And so you'll have the ability to kind of create your own custom integrations that can receive data and share data back. Can't wait for that one. QBO. So there are some time updates that we're excited to hopefully get access here soon, where we will be able to now support pushing in and selecting the correct payroll item. If you have a bunch of different rates, one of the limitations of their current API until very recently was that they didn't allow us to actually select and customize the payroll item that went in there. So again, that's something that we're going to be hopefully able to start working on soon. We've got great connection relationships now with some higher ups at Intuit, so we're very excited to hopefully get that in the works very soon. All right, here's a big one. With our workflows, this is now going to give us the ability to create a Twilio SMS integration. So all of you who have wanted to be able to send out text messages from JobTread, we are going to set it up where you will be able to create your own Twilio account, and then you'll be able to authenticate that and use that Twilio account within our workflows integration. So if something happens, or if a reminder needs to be sent, or a notification needs to be sent out, you'll be able to then use your own Twilio account, because again, like sending text messages is relatively expensive compared to like sending emails, and so we don't want to have to, increase the cost of JobTread because a small group of people want to send, thousands and thousands of text messages, to each group, again, it should be a fairly nominal expense, but like we needed to be able to have this integration set up where you can bring your own account and pay for your own usage. And so that allows us, to again, just leverage this workflows feature to let you set up and have the different text messaging capabilities. So we're really, really excited to finally be able to get to work on that. Can't wait for that update to be coming out soon. And lastly, we have some really great relationships that we have formed with different suppliers that we are very excited to start working on. We've got, the SRS integration, we've got the Home Depot integration, going to keep kind of working on those. But, we've now have a partnership with QXO, with Beacon, to be able to integrate in a similar fashion. But again, the goal is to now take it all the way through to procurement. So not only can you get the real-time price and availability, but you'll be able to directly order those materials right through JobTread and then pull back in the receipt, the final bill amount. Pool Corp as well, great relationship with them now. They're awesome, very, very, tech forward, very innovative. They got some great APIs that they're making available to us. So again, we're talking to others, ABC Supply, a couple other, large integrations or large suppliers out there. Again, if you have people, that you would love to see us integrate with, please help us by, letting them know, finding the right contacts, help, kind of track it down. It can take a long time at some of these large companies to get to the right people. So to the extent that you can help us, we would love to be able to keep partnering with more and more integration or more and more suppliers out there to really streamline the whole procurement process. But again, now that we're getting this workflows feature out of the way, it's going to enable it to be so much easier for us to build a lot more of these integrations using our own tools to set it up. So we got a heavy roadmap ahead of us. There's a lot of other little things that I'm sure will be on there. But again, really, really excited. And again, shout out to the entire JobTread dev team. Casey, Matthew, Andrew, Nate, Mike, you guys are doing a great job. As you can see, I'm sure from the chat here, like, this truly is unprecedented how quickly we are able to build this application. And it's based on and guided by your feedback. The customers, the users, like we could not do this without you. But this wouldn't be happening without that dev team sitting right over there in that room in our office. And we are just so grateful. We're so proud of them. We're also a little bit mystified at how this actually happened so quickly. And, at this point, we're just building a company around that brain trust right there. But, again, thanks, guys, for all of your hard work, for everything that you've done to make this the best possible product that you can. We're so grateful. So you can keep up with all these updates directly in the help desk. You'll be able to kind of see all the what's new. You get a little red indicator icon at the top of your screen whenever there's a new thing there, but do check back frequently. Watch those quick little videos that Anna and Travis, their team put out to help keep you up to date. We do put a lot of effort into making sure that we are giving you the education behind what changed and how it's going to work and why we changed it, so you can keep up with all of that there. Again, all the live trainings, as we keep building out our training team, and we're looking to keep, bringing on more and more people to that team. We are doing live trainings every single day. We're going to have a bunch of new live trainings for these new features, but all the think tanks as well, the crash courses, coming in person to the boot camps. Like, there's so many ways that you can continue to develop your knowledge and your skill set with JobTread, and we want to be there to help you learn, to help you get it implemented. If you haven't, if you're new to JobTread, you haven't come to one of our boot camps, please do consider this. They're in Dallas, Texas. They're at our office. I think we actually sold out. We had like 70 or 80 people at the last one. So these do sell out. So you'll want to get your tickets a little bit early, but a lot of times you can get it pretty close to the date. The next one is what is that? Maybe 2 weeks, August 28th and 29th. After that, we'll have one on September 11th and 12th. And then there's going to be one in October, one in November. But again, consider taking the time, bring out your team. Let us help you get up to speed very, very quickly, learn the basics, and get going. And got a couple really exciting upcoming webinars. For those of you who don't know Penny Lane, she is or Penny Cruel. She is incredible. She is awesome. She is a very, very knowledgeable accountant, bookkeeper, understands the intricacies of JobTread and how they relate to QuickBooks, online, QuickBooks Desktop, a bunch of other systems. And so we're going to be doing a Pro Spotlight webinar with her August 19th. So I think that's next week. Mastering the JobTread and QuickBooks Online integration. Don't want to miss that. And then August 27th, we got Randy Stanberry, awesome coach. This guy really helps people not only get set up with JobTread, but also helps them to know their numbers, build out much better, much more scalable businesses. Quit spinning your wheels on the hamster wheel. Come learn from him. Get out of your own way. A real talk for builders who want to, who want more. So highly recommend that. I will also be, participating with him. That's August 27th at 3 p.m. Central. You can also scan this QR code, or you can go to our website or our help desk. You'll see all of our upcoming events. We're constantly putting out a lot of webinars, education that we think is going to help you build a better business. And JobTread certification programs. Again, we've got the new field employee certification there. I know they're also going back through right now. They're updating these certification programs with all this new content. So really excited about this. Definitely take your time. And if you didn't know, as admins, you can see everyone and the progress that they've made on their certifications. So if you want to encourage your team to go through and get certified, it's a great way to know that they have learned the basics and they can, use JobTread in the correct way. One other thing that I realized I think I might have skipped over earlier on, JobTread Connect is coming up in January 14th to the 16th. Tickets are on sale. We've already sold, I think, close to 400 of these tickets. We do anticipate this being a sellout event again. So you want to grab your tickets as early as you can. We did a JobTread Connect What to Expect webinar yesterday. I believe that's on our YouTube now, probably on the webinars page in the help desk. Go check that out. But ticket prices are going to be going up on October 3rd. They're going to increase by $100. So get your ticket before then. There's no reason to pay more. It helps us to also continue planning and getting all the logistics nailed down. For those of you who don't know, it is a big production that we put on. We will have over 1,000 people here. And so the sooner that you can commit to that, that really helps us. We would appreciate you grabbing those tickets. You also want to make sure to get your hotel reservations. The hotels, they will sell out. All of the hotels in the whole area are going to sell out. So get those hotel reservations in place as soon as you can. And lastly, again, shout out to the JobTread Pros Facebook group. You guys rock. There's so many of you that I see you are spending countless hours to help other people, whether you're answering questions about JobTread, answering questions about construction, business questions, giving people encouragement. Thank you all for creating such an incredible community. We are just so blessed that you guys have kept this such a positive and exciting community for people to be part of. We love seeing the growth in here. It is very, very, just unreal to see how you all are helping each other. And it is also tremendously helpful for us to keep scaling this as we get more and more, approaching, hopefully, 10,000 customers by the end of the year, early next year. This community has been tremendously helpful. So we really, really appreciate it. Also, quick little shout out to Builder Stories. If you're not following along, definitely check it out. Builderstories.com. You can watch all the episodes, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Again, it's a great way to learn from others, their experience, the challenges that they've had, how they've overcome them. These get published every single Wednesday morning. So tune in, go through. You can kind of look through the ones. I think we're now over 100 episodes. So, this has been a very, long project that I've worked very hard on to interview over 100 people who have been on this podcast, and I can tell you there's so much great knowledge and education that you can get from listening to others. You don't have to learn everything the hard way. Tune in and get some value. And lastly, thank you all for all the shout outs, everything that you guys have done to help spread the word. We are just so blown away about all of the reviews that we see that come in every day. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is pretty crazy that, I think 600 or 700, however many it is, 5-star reviews. I saw some people saying that couldn't be real. It is real. We have not, paid for a single one of those reviews. Those are not, I know there's ways to get fake reviews. Like, you all have given us those organic, genuine, reviews, and it means the world to us. Thank you for helping us continue to spread the word. If you haven't given us a review, we would love you, to do that on any one of these sites or all these sites. Like, again, it's really, really helpful. This is how we have been able to grow JobTread as quickly as we can, keeping our costs down. Keeping our customer acquisition cost helps us to keep that price point. It's been $199 plus $20 per user for, well over 3 years, going on 4 years. We don't have any intention of increasing that price anytime soon. And it's thanks to you all that we're not having to spend a fortune to get that word out. You all are helping us do that. And it really, really means the world to us, and it helps us keep our costs down. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And that concludes today's town hall, our live product update. I went over time a little bit, but I'm happy to hang around as usual, answer any questions that we may have here.